Hello and welcome to ET Energy World. I'm Sudhir, and this is the ET Energy World Energy Leadership Series. And we are today talking to none other than Bertrand Piccard, a very well known figure in the climate change space, in the climate action space globally. He's a Swiss explorer and an environmentalist. He was also the initiator, chairman, and the pilot of Solar Impulse, the first successful round the world solar powered flight. He's also the founder and chairman of the Solar Impulse Foundation, and he's now busy with another similar project, the Climate Impulse. So let me, first of all, a very warm welcome to you on our platform, Dr. Picard.
I'm very happy to participate. Thank you for the invitation to speak with you.
Okay, let me start this conversation by trying to understand from you, from the point of view of our readers and audience. I want to be able to, ask you about your background, right? In terms of, what is it that motivates you as an explorer and also as a climate action advocate? If you could briefly take us through your body of work, that has been done so far.
I've been inspired to be an explorer by my grandfather, who was the first man to fly in the stratosphere, who invented the pressurized cabin, who was the first to see the curvature of the Earth with his own eyes. I was inspired by my father, who made the first dive with his bathyscaphe submarine into the bottom of the Mariana Trench, 11 kilometers down. And in a family like this, you learn that nothing is impossible. You learn that scientific exploration has to serve the well-being of humankind. So I wanted to explore the outer world. So this
Okay.
pushed me to achieve the first flight around the world nonstop in a balloon, the first flight around the world without any fuel with a solar-powered airplane, but also to explore the inner world. That means different ways of thinking, different ways of doing. And today, the world is in a bad shape because we have done for too long something that was working in the past but not working anymore. So the world today is outdated. It's the world of the past. We have old sources of energy, old technologies, old infrastructures that are not efficient, that are losing energy, losing water, losing food, losing waste, losing natural resources. And we have to modernize all that to be more efficient and at the same time protect the environment and develop the economy. So this is what I try to achieve, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing, and that's the task of explorers.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Thanks for that brief introduction, Dr. Picard. What is the central idea, behind projects like Solar Impulse or Climate Impulse? To what extent, when we look at that idea that, what we are trying to achieve, to what extent do you think you've been able to achieve the desired results over the past few years? So what has been the ultimate outcome? How do you rate the end result from these? From projects like this and activities like this?
What I would like to do is to prove and demonstrate that we can do much more and much better than what we do today. The solar powered airplane to around the world, that was a demonstration of what we can do with renewable energies and clean technologies. And by being energy efficient, use very little amounts of energy to do absolutely incredible things. This is energy efficiency. So Solar Impulse was not there to make a revolution in air transport. It was here to make a revolution in the mindset of the people when they think about renewable energies. And when you look at the price of solar power 20 years ago, it was 40 times more expensive than today. So you see how much it's important to make it more popular, to produce more renewable energies, to consume more renewables than fossil energies in order to put the price down, to give access to clean energy to everyone. So that was really my goal with Solar Impulse, to promote clean technologies and renewable energies. Now with Climate Impulse, that's the next step. It's not just there to promote clean technologies because we know it works, but it is to decarbonize aviation. So as much Solar Impulse was a project for energy, as much Climate Impulse is a project for aviation. Take a really difficult sector to decarbonize and show that it's possible thanks to green hydrogen.
Okay. Can you tell us more about the Climate Impulse project? I mean, I wanted to discuss it slightly in detail. What is the kind of technology involved? What is the kind of cost involved? And that also brings in the aspect about the different partners that you're working with for such an ambitious project. What are the key challenges to be overcome? Things like that. And if you could also talk about the learning that you have had from Solar Impulse that you think will come handy in the implementation of Climate Impulse project. If you could give us some sense of these things. Yeah.
You have to imagine Climate Impulse as an airplane that is built around the tanks of liquid hydrogen.
Okay.
Liquid hydrogen has to be kept at minus 253 degrees Celsius, very, very cold, in very well insulated tanks. And this takes a lot of volume. It's not a lot of weight, but it's a lot of volume. So we have two fuselage carrying both fuel tanks. And there is a little bit of this hydrogen that always evaporates. It's called the boil-off. And this boil-off goes through the fuel cells that transform hydrogen into electricity and water, giving the electricity to run two electric motors. So like this, you can fly absolutely zero emission. And we have a small cockpit in the middle of the two fuselage with quite big wings, but smaller than Solar Impulse, and we will fly faster. We'll fly about 200 kilometers per hour. So it will be roughly 8 days to fly around the world, nonstop with two people on board. So it's not just an idea, it's a real project ongoing because we have worked now with a French engineer called Raphaël Dinelli in order to design the plane, which is now in the beginning of the construction. We will receive the mold for the cockpit very, very soon. And we are starting to build also the hydrogen tanks. So about 2 years of construction, 24, 25, then 2 years of tests, longer and longer flights, 26 and 27. And then in 2028, we should be able to fly all the way around the world without without emissions, without fossil fuels, just on hydrogen.
So 2 years of construction followed by 3 years of tests. And that's understandable, of course, because we're talking about hydrogen. And that makes me want to ask you, when we're talking about hydrogen, flying into the air, real hydrogen, there is also a safety aspect, right? So what are from a safety point of view, what are the precautions that have been taken, right? If you could give us some sense of that, and to what extent, that would have, to what part of it, I mean, if you could look at it, linking it to the cost involved of the entire project, if you could give us some sense of that.
The cost of the project is roughly $60 million, 60. And this includes the construction of the plane, the operations, and of course, the promotion of green hydrogen, because the goal is not just to make an adventure for me in the air. The goal is to inspire people to do things beyond what they think to do, to do things that they consider impossible. Because you always have people, every time something new is coming, they say, oh, it's not possible, it's too difficult, it's too expensive, it will never happen. No, that's wrong. When something new is coming, we have to take the opportunity, we have to see what we can do with it, we have to change our paradigms, we have to be open to the unknown and develop new ways of thinking and new ways of doing. So hydrogen, when it is produced with renewable energy, can be absolutely clean and decarbonized. It can then be used for heavy transport, like aviation, like heavy trucks, like ships, like trains, but also used for steel industry, for fertilizers industry. And it's a perfect way also to store the intermittent renewable sources of energy, like wind and solar, that are not constant all day, 24 hours, So when there is too much of it, we store it in hydrogen. And when there is not enough solar or wind, you can use this hydrogen to give again the electricity to run the grid. So you see the role of hydrogen is quite central for the energy transition. So what we need to do is to make hydrogen much more popular, to give the wish to use hydrogen, to produce hydrogen, to think hydrogen, to include it in everything we do. And it's clear that if you have an aeroplane flying on hydrogen nonstop around the world, I think it's a powerful message. It's like a flagship that shows that hydrogen now is mature, that everybody can use it, and stop complaining there are no solutions, because it's wrong. There are a lot of solutions. We just have to use them. We need to modernize our world. Our world, as much for the economy as for the ecology, is a world of the past. We are now using very, very old systems for heating, for cooling, even thermal engines. It's a disaster. 3/4 of the energy that you put in your fuel tank is lost because the yield of a thermal engine is just bad. When the yield of an electric engine is 3 times better, it means you need 3 times less energy per kilometer with an electric car than with a gasoline or diesel car. So even if there was no climate change, it would be logical as much as ecological to be more efficient, to be more modern, to use cleaner sources of energy, to stop wasting natural resources. Because if you stop wasting, your profit margin is higher and your energy bill is lower. So there is, for certain people, there is a climate urgency, but for everyone, even the one who don't believe in climate change, there is an economic imperative to work it out.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you on that, Dr. Piccard. Yeah, on that optimistic note, let me try and ask you one more question. You have you've done a lot of work, right? Solar Impulse was there. Now Climate Impulse is going to come up, and that's a very ambitious project. I want to understand from you what next, right? What next for you when let's say Climate Impulse is also done and done successfully, hopefully, and you're able to generate the kind of noise that has to be there around climate change, and everything is done. What next for you in terms of projects or in terms of new ventures? What is the next big thing? What is the next big idea in your mind?
Well, we have still 4 years before Climate Impulse will hopefully fly around the world. So let's not tempt fate and ask what I'm going to do after that. But let's speak of what I'm doing now in parallel to Climate Impulse, because we have the Solar Impulse Foundation that has identified at date 1,600 economically profitable solutions to protect the environment. And this is a huge amount of solutions in every field: water, energy, mobility, construction, industry, agriculture, waste management, circular economy, IT business. And all these solutions, now they exist. We have given the label Solar Impulse Efficient Solution, but they are not known enough. They are not used enough. So our world is still inefficient because we're not using the solutions that we should use. So I'm working now with my foundation and a fantastic dedicated team in order to bring these solutions to the industry, to the governments, to all the institutions, and show them how to modernize the world with the solutions that exist today that are the result of a fantastic work of innovators. So this is, I believe, a very big leverage if we want to modernize and decarbonize our world.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Piccard. Thank you for your time. On that note, let me bring this conversation to an end. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and we really hope to stay in touch and host you again in other similar initiatives. Thank you for your time.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to speak about these topics because especially in the United Arab Emirates with Masdar, with Abu Dhabi, there is so much happening here. It's such a beautiful example for the world. And I took off and landed with Solar Impulse in Abu Dhabi. Maybe it will be the same with Climate Impulse. So I'm sure we'll meet again in the Emirates.